More than 8 months after Jack and Lilly Sullivan vanished from their rural home in Nova Scotia, new court documents are bringing renewed attention to the case. The siblings were reported missing in May 2025, and despite extensive searches and a massive investigative effort, no clear answers have emerged. Now, recently unsealed records are offering fresh insight into the family situation in the weeks leading up to their disappearance, raising important questions without providing definitive conclusions. This update examines what those court documents actually reveal, and just as importantly, what they do not. From statements made to police to prior concerns involving child welfare authorities, each detail must be viewed carefully and in context. This is not a story of accusations or conclusions, but a closer look at verified records, unanswered questions, and why investigators continue to proceed with caution in one of Nova Scotia's most puzzling missing children cases. More than 8 months have passed since siblings Jack and Lilly Sullivan were reported missing from their rural home in Nova Scotia. The case has remained unresolved despite extensive searches and continued police efforts. On January 15, 2026, newly unsealed court documents brought renewed attention to the investigation, offering additional context about the family situation prior to the children's disappearance, while still leaving the central mystery unanswered. Jack, who was 4 years old, and Lilly, aged 6, were reported missing on May 2, 2025. According to the initial 911 call, the children were believed to have wandered away from their home in Lansdowne Station, a sparsely populated and heavily wooded area in Pictou County. That report triggered one of the largest missing children searches in the region's recent history. Search teams combed dense forests surrounding the family's property, using ground search crews, helicopters, drones, and service dogs. Despite covering several square kilometers of rugged terrain, investigators found very little physical evidence. Over time, the absence of clear leads caused growing concern and widespread public speculation, especially as days turned into weeks and then months. At the time of their disappearance, the children were living with their mother, her partner, and a younger sibling. Police have stated that the entire household was part of the broader investigative scope, as is standard practice in missing persons cases involving young children. Authorities emphasized that this does not imply wrongdoing, but reflects the need for a thorough and methodical review of all circumstances. The newly released court documents were filed in support of applications for search warrants during the early stages of the investigation. These records were not criminal charges, nor were they findings of fact. Instead, they were intended to provide background information to justify investigative steps requested by police as they attempted to locate the missing children. Among the documents is a recorded interview in which the children's mother discussed her relationship with her partner. When questioned by police, she described moments of conflict, including incidents where she said he blocked her path, held her down, or pushed her on one occasion. These statements were included as part of the investigative record. The documents also noted that she said her partner would sometimes take her phone when she attempted to call her mother, and that these moments could become physical and painful. It is important to note that these statements reflect her account alone. The court records do not indicate that these claims were tested or confirmed in court. In contrast, the partner provided a different account during his own interview with investigators. According to the documents, he described the relationship as generally good, acknowledging that the couple had disagreements, particularly about finances. He stated that arguments involved raised voices, but denied any physical conflict within the relationship. When later contacted by media, the partner publicly denied the allegations, saying they were part of a narrative that portrayed him negatively. He maintained that he was cooperating fully with investigators and continued to work closely with police in hopes of understanding what happened to the children. The court records also revealed that police spoke with the children's biological father. He told investigators that he had not seen the children in several years, but had been paying child support until he lost his job, months before their disappearance. No further details about his involvement were outlined in the documents. Another detail that drew attention was confirmation that child welfare authorities had previously had contact with the family. The documents did not specify when that contact occurred or the exact reason for it. Officials have not released information indicating whether any formal findings or actions resulted from that involvement. Police and child welfare agencies have repeatedly stressed that prior contact does not automatically imply serious wrongdoing. In many cases, such visits are precautionary and conclude without further intervention. However, the existence of that contact has added another layer of complexity to an already difficult investigation. As the months passed, investigators expanded their efforts beyond ground searches. According to police statements, more than 1,000 tips have been reviewed, dozens of formal interviews conducted, and thousands of hours of video footage analyzed. Several polygraph examinations were also carried out as part of the ongoing inquiry. Despite the scale of these efforts, authorities have said the case remains classified as a missing persons investigation rather than a criminal matter. Police have explained that this designation reflects the current state of evidence and does not rule out the possibility of criminal findings in the future. Senior RCMP officials have described the case as extremely rare due to its duration, complexity, and the age of the missing children. They have emphasized that investigations of this nature require careful sequencing, as premature conclusions can compromise the integrity of the process. Legal experts have noted that the language used in court filings is deliberate. The absence of criminal charges does not mean investigators have stopped considering all possibilities. Instead, it indicates that the available information has not yet met the legal threshold required for such steps. Public attention surrounding the case has intensified as new details emerge. Online speculation has grown alongside international media coverage, prompting repeated reminders from police and legal professionals about the importance of relying on verified information rather than assumptions. The newly unsealed documents add context, but they do not provide answers about where Jack and Lilly are or what happened after they were last seen. Investigators have been clear that these records represent only fragments of a much larger and ongoing investigation. Authorities continue to review evidence using advanced technology, including digital analysis tools and aerial surveillance methods. Police say these techniques may help clarify timelines, movements, or other details relevant to determining what occurred in the days surrounding the disappearance. As of now, no suspects have been named and no charges have been laid. The case remains open, active, and under review. While the court documents shed light on certain family dynamics, they also underscore how much remains unknown in one of Nova Scotia's most enduring missing children cases. As attention returned to the case following the release of court documents, investigators reiterated that the records were never intended to explain what happened to Jack and Lilly. Instead, they reflect how police attempted to understand the family environment while seeking legal authorization to conduct searches during the early stages of the investigation. One element referenced in reporting is that child welfare authorities had previous contact with the family. Officials have not disclosed the timing, scope, or outcome of that involvement. No public documents state that any formal findings were made, and no details suggest that immediate protective actions were taken at that time. Experts note that child welfare agencies often respond to reports that range widely in seriousness. A visit can result from a single concern, a misunderstanding, or a routine follow-up. In many cases, such involvement ends without further steps, making it difficult to draw conclusions without specific documentation. Because of privacy laws, agencies responsible for child protection are typically restricted from sharing information publicly. This lack of transparency can create uncertainty and speculation, especially in high-profile cases. Authorities have repeatedly emphasized that the absence of public details does not confirm or deny any particular scenario. Another detail discussed publicly is that Jack was previously seen with visible bruising near one eye. No medical reports or official statements have been released explaining how the injury occurred. Police have not linked that observation to any confirmed incident, nor have they publicly described it as evidence of wrongdoing. In cases involving young children, investigators are required to examine any prior injuries carefully. However, specialists caution that minor injuries are common among children and can result from everyday accidents. Without medical findings or corroborating evidence, such observations cannot be treated as definitive indicators. Police have stated that all available information is evaluated collectively rather than in isolation. Individual details may raise questions, but only patterns supported by evidence can influence investigative direction. This approach helps prevent assumptions from shaping outcomes prematurely. As months passed without clear answers, investigators broadened their focus beyond the immediate area surrounding the home. Digital evidence became a central component of the investigation, including the review of surveillance footage, mobile data, and other electronic records that could help reconstruct timelines. According to RCMP officials, more than 1,000 tips have been received from the public. Each submission is reviewed, documented, and assessed for relevance. While most tips do not lead to breakthroughs, authorities say even minor information can sometimes help eliminate possibilities. Formal interviews have also played a major role in the investigation. Dozens of individuals connected to the family, community, and surrounding areas have been questioned. These interviews are conducted methodically, often repeated over time, as investigators cross-check details for consistency. Several polygraph examinations were carried out during the investigation. Police have clarified that such tests are used as investigative tools rather than evidence. Results are not determinative and are typically considered alongside other information rather than on their own. Senior RCMP leadership has described the case as unusual due to its length and complexity. Missing children cases typically resolve within a short period, making prolonged uncertainty particularly challenging for investigators and families alike. Despite the public focus on potential explanations, police have maintained that the case remains classified under the Missing Persons Act. This status reflects current evidentiary thresholds and does not exclude the possibility that the investigation's scope could change if new information emerges. Legal analysts observing the case point out that investigators must balance transparency with responsibility. Releasing unverified information could compromise the investigation or unfairly affect individuals connected to the case, especially when no charges have been laid. Public speculation has intensified online, fueled by the release of partial details and the emotional nature of the case. Authorities have repeatedly urged the public to avoid assumptions and to rely on confirmed information released through official channels. Investigators have also confirmed the use of advanced technology, including aerial tools and video analysis software. These methods are designed to identify patterns, movements, or environmental factors that may not have been visible during initial searches. While the newly unsealed documents provide additional background, they represent only a fraction of the material reviewed by police. Most investigative findings remain confidential, limiting the ability of the public to see the full picture. Officials stress that the lack of public updates does not indicate inactivity. Much of the work in complex missing persons cases occurs behind the scenes, involving data analysis, coordination between agencies, and long-term review of evidence. As of early 2026, no suspects have been identified publicly, and no criminal charges have been announced. Police continue to describe the investigation as active and ongoing, with resources dedicated to reviewing both existing and new information. The disappearance of Jack and Lilly Sullivan remains unresolved. While recent reporting has added context about family circumstances and investigative steps, the central question remains unanswered. Authorities say their focus continues to be on determining what happened and ultimately on locating the missing children. Following the release of newly unsealed court documents, media coverage of the case intensified across Canada and beyond. Major outlets emphasized that the records provided context rather than answers, carefully noting that the material reflected investigative steps rather than findings about what happened to Jack and Lilly Sullivan. CBC News framed the update as an examination of process, focusing on how police sought search warrants and why certain family details appeared in court filings. The reporting stressed that such information is often included to establish investigative scope, not to assign responsibility or draw conclusions. Global News, meanwhile, highlighted statements contained within the documents, while also repeatedly clarifying that none of the claims had been tested in court. Both outlets underscored that the case remains unresolved and that the documents represent only one layer of a complex investigation. The renewed attention prompted responses from RCMP officials, who reiterated that the investigation remains active. Police emphasized that while public interest is understandable, incomplete information can easily be misinterpreted when taken out of context. Staff with Nova Scotia RCMP noted that missing persons investigations involving young children require particularly careful handling. Every available detail must be reviewed, but investigators must also ensure that speculation does not interfere with evidence-based decision-making. Former police investigators and legal analysts interviewed by CBC described the language used in court filings as deliberate and restrained. They explained that phrases such as "no reasonable grounds" have specific legal meanings and do not imply that all possibilities have been excluded. One expert observed that the distinction between a missing persons investigation and a criminal investigation is often misunderstood by the public. The classification reflects evidentiary thresholds, not certainty about outcomes, and can change if new information emerges. Media coverage also revisited the scale of the original search effort. In the days following the disappearance, hundreds of volunteers, police officers, and specialists participated in coordinated operations across dense woodland near the family's home. Despite those efforts, the lack of physical evidence became a defining feature of the case. Over time, the absence of clear findings contributed to public frustration and ongoing questions about how young children could vanish without leaving clearer traces. RCMP officials have consistently stated that the investigation did not stop once ground searches concluded. Instead, resources shifted toward long-term analysis, including digital evidence review and interagency cooperation across provincial boundaries. In interviews, senior officers described the case as rare but not unprecedented. They noted that prolonged investigations often involve extensive behind-the-scenes work that cannot be shared publicly without risking the integrity of future steps. Experts interviewed by CBC cautioned against interpreting silence from authorities as inaction. In complex cases, progress may involve eliminating possibilities rather than confirming a single narrative, a process that can take significant time. Public speculation, particularly on social media, has remained a persistent challenge. Police and journalists alike have urged audiences to rely on verified reporting rather than assumptions or unconfirmed claims circulating online. The Crown's submissions related to media access applications were also covered in reporting. Those documents stated that while there were currently no grounds to conclude that a crime had occurred, the investigation could evolve if circumstances changed. That wording drew attention from legal observers, who described it as intentionally cautious. They noted that such phrasing preserves investigative flexibility while avoiding premature characterization of events. Media outlets also highlighted statements confirming that advanced technology continues to be used in the investigation. These tools include video analysis programs and aerial equipment designed to identify details missed during earlier phases. Authorities have not provided timelines for when new updates might be released. They have stated only that the case remains open and that any significant developments will be communicated when appropriate. For the families involved, the ongoing uncertainty remains central. Reporting has consistently acknowledged the emotional toll of prolonged investigations, while also respecting privacy limitations that restrict what can be shared publicly. As the case enters its 9th month, media coverage continues to balance public interest with caution. Journalists emphasize verified facts, repeatedly clarifying where information ends and unanswered questions begin. At present, the disappearance of Jack and Lilly Sullivan remains one of Nova Scotia's most closely followed missing children cases. While court documents, expert commentary, and official statements have added context, the focus of investigators remains unchanged, determining what happened and finding the missing children. As the investigation continues, police have emphasized the importance of understanding how missing persons cases are structured. Unlike criminal cases, these investigations prioritize locating individuals rather than proving wrongdoing, which shapes how evidence is gathered, reviewed, and communicated to the public. In the case of Jack and Lilly Sullivan, this framework explains why authorities have repeatedly stated that the absence of criminal charges does not indicate inactivity. Instead, it reflects a careful assessment of what can be legally supported by available information at each stage. Court documents referenced in recent reporting were tied specifically to search warrant applications. Legal experts explain that such documents often include broad background details to demonstrate investigative diligence, even when those details are not directly linked to the disappearance itself. This distinction has been central to how police and prosecutors have described the material released to the media. They have consistently clarified that inclusion in court records does not equal confirmation, and that allegations within those records are not findings of fact. Another recurring theme in coverage is the role of time. Investigators have acknowledged that as weeks turn into months, certain types of evidence become harder to recover, while others, particularly digital records, grow more significant in reconstructing events. RCMP officials have confirmed that digital analysis remains a key focus. This includes reviewing video files, location data, and other electronic information that may help establish timelines or movements connected to the days surrounding the disappearance. At the same time, police have noted that digital evidence rarely provides immediate answers on its own. Instead, it must be interpreted alongside witness statements, environmental factors, and known patterns in missing children cases. Media reports have also highlighted the geographic challenges of the search area. The family's home is located near dense woodland, uneven terrain, and limited infrastructure, conditions that complicated early search efforts and continue to influence investigative theories. Despite those challenges, authorities have stated that the possibility of the children simply remaining lost in the surrounding environment has not been definitively confirmed. Over time, investigators have reassessed initial assumptions as new information became available. Another point addressed in reporting is the importance of cooperation from individuals connected to the case. Police have acknowledged ongoing communication with family members while stressing that cooperation does not imply conclusions about responsibility. Statements made by family members to the media have been carefully contextualized by journalists. Outlets have consistently noted when comments reflect personal belief or emotion rather than verified investigative findings. The involvement of multiple RCMP units from different provinces has also been referenced. This coordination allows for specialized expertise to be applied, particularly in areas such as behavioral analysis and advanced data review. According to police leadership, such collaboration is reserved for cases that present unusual complexity. They have described the disappearance of 2 young children without clear evidence as fitting that description. Legal observers have pointed out that prolonged investigations often involve extensive documentation that may never become public. What audiences see through media reports represents only a small portion of the overall case file. This reality contributes to ongoing uncertainty. Without access to the full investigative record, the public must rely on official statements and verified reporting, both of which are necessarily limited by legal and ethical constraints. Authorities have reiterated that protecting the integrity of the investigation remains a priority. Releasing incomplete or speculative information could compromise future steps or unfairly impact individuals connected to the case. As coverage continues, journalists have emphasized the difference between unanswered questions and evidence of misconduct. The former is common in complex investigations, while the latter requires specific proof that has not been publicly established. 8 months after the disappearance, many aspects of the case remain unresolved. Reporting has consistently highlighted that while new documents add context, they do not change the fundamental status of the investigation. For now, police maintain that their focus remains on gathering information, reassessing evidence, and following leads as they arise. Part 4 concludes with the same reality reflected throughout the reporting. Despite added detail and renewed attention, the search for answers about Jack and Lilly Sullivan continues. As the investigation approaches its 9th month, police continue to stress that the disappearance of Jack and Lilly Sullivan remains an open and active case. Despite renewed attention following the release of court documents, authorities say the core focus has not changed since the earliest days of the investigation. RCMP officials have reiterated that the case is still being handled under provincial missing persons legislation. This designation reflects the current state of evidence and determines how investigative resources are applied, rather than serving as a conclusion about what may or may not have occurred. In statements to media, senior officers emphasized that missing persons cases can evolve over time. If new information meets legal thresholds, the investigative framework can change. Until then, police continue to gather, assess, and verify information using established procedures. Court filings referenced in recent reporting included language noting that there were no reasonable grounds to believe a criminal offense had taken place at the time the documents were prepared. Legal analysts explained that such wording is precise and intentionally cautious. That language does not exclude future developments. Officials acknowledge that as investigations progress, new evidence or insights could alter how the case is categorized. For now, police say they are committed to following facts rather than speculation. Authorities have also addressed public reaction to the unsealed documents. They recognize the emotional weight of the case and the concerns surrounding missing children, but caution that partial information can be misunderstood when separated from full investigative context. Police have continued to ask members of the public to come forward with any information they believe may be relevant, no matter how minor it may seem. Investigators note that even small details can help clarify timelines or rule out possibilities. More than 1,000 tips have already been reviewed, according to RCMP statements. Each tip is logged, assessed, and cross-referenced with existing information. While many do not lead to actionable results, the process remains ongoing. Officials have confirmed that investigative teams remain engaged with both existing evidence and new technological tools. Video review programs, data analysis methods, and aerial resources continue to be used as part of long-term investigative efforts. Police leadership has described the case as one of the most complex missing children investigations they have encountered. Factors such as the rural environment, lack of physical evidence, and passage of time have contributed to the challenges involved. Throughout media coverage, journalists have emphasized that no suspects have been publicly identified. Authorities have consistently avoided naming individuals or assigning responsibility, citing the need to protect both the investigation and the rights of those involved. The Crown's submissions related to media access have also been referenced in reporting. Those documents acknowledged that while no crime has been established, the investigation could become criminal if new evidence supports that shift. Legal experts note that such statements reflect standard practice. Prosecutors and investigators must leave open all possibilities while ensuring that public disclosures remain accurate and fair. The case has continued to draw attention beyond Nova Scotia, with national and international media following developments closely. This level of scrutiny has prompted repeated reminders about the importance of relying on verified reporting. Authorities have urged the public to avoid spreading unconfirmed claims or drawing conclusions based on incomplete information. They stress that speculation can complicate investigations and place unnecessary strain on those connected to the case. Despite limited public updates, police say investigative work continues behind the scenes. Much of this work involves reviewing existing material rather than conducting visible search operations, a shift common in long-running cases. Journalists covering the case have highlighted the balance investigators must maintain between transparency and responsibility. While public interest is high, releasing sensitive information prematurely could undermine future investigative steps. As time passes, the lack of resolution remains deeply troubling for many observers. Reporting has consistently acknowledged the unanswered questions, while reinforcing that absence of answers does not equal absence of effort. Authorities continue to emphasize their primary objective: determining what happened to Jack and Lilly Sullivan and locating them. All investigative decisions, they say, are guided by that goal rather than external pressure. Part 5 concludes with the reality reflected across all recent coverage. While newly released court documents have added background and renewed discussion, they have not changed the central facts. The disappearance remains unresolved, the investigation remains active, and officials continue to seek information that may finally bring clarity to one of Nova Scotia's most enduring missing children cases. As this update comes to a close, the case of Jack and Lilly Sullivan remains unresolved. Newly released court documents have provided additional context about the investigation and the family circumstances surrounding the disappearance, but they have not delivered definitive answers. Authorities continue to emphasize that these records reflect investigative steps, not conclusions, and that many key details remain unknown more than 8 months later. Police have been clear that the case is still being handled as a missing persons investigation, with no suspects publicly identified and no criminal charges laid. Officials stress that careful, methodical work continues behind the scenes, even when visible updates are limited. The absence of public conclusions does not mean the investigation has stalled, only that evidence must meet strict legal standards before further action is taken. Cases involving missing children demand patience, accuracy, and restraint. History shows that speculation and assumptions can obscure facts rather than clarify them. This case serves as a reminder of why verified information matters, especially when the lives of children are at the center. Every detail must be weighed carefully, and every update must be viewed in context rather than isolation. If you have followed this case, the most responsible action is to stay informed through credible reporting and to avoid spreading unverified claims. Missing children cases rely not only on investigators, but also on public awareness grounded in facts. If you believe you have information relevant to this case, authorities encourage you to contact law enforcement directly. Awareness, accuracy, and compassion remain essential as the search for answers continues.